Mishka, and welcome back to my channel. I think I just had a voice crack, but it's fine. So everyone, we are now finally back with Baxter's DLC. It has been a hot minute since I have recorded this. It's been probably almost a month. So sorry about that. I've just been kind of going off schedule for the past few weeks, and I've been busy. And last week I took a week break. I was really busy last week, and I was sick. And I don't know if I sound sick now. Sorry if I do, but yeah, everyone. We're gonna be continuing with the third moment with Baxter, and I think we left off where we're cooking like cupcakes for Miranda's party. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe button and share this video with your friends so they can find out about my amazing channel just like I have right now. So yeah, let's get into it. I hope you enjoy. And I'm not feeling that good, everyone, so I'm probably won't be like as excited in this episode. If something happens, I will be, but I'm planning on finishing this moment today, so y'all can enjoy it and hopefully makes up for the last few weeks of absence. And so you briefly split up. Baxter walked briskly to his rented condo while you warily dragged yourself home. Your legs felt like a curious mixture of jelly and cement. Okay, I need to like turn this down. Why is that so loud? And a vague panic of fatigue pressed insistent at your temples, but you'd survive this ordeal somehow for Miranda's sake. When you came in, you spied your mom sitting around the living room. They were huddled up on one of the couches, luxuriating in one another's company after a day's work. Ma's head rested on her wife's shoulder while Mom brushed fingers lightly through her hair. They could have been a famous sculpture or painting sitting there. It was hard to witness your parents like that sometimes. Not because it was embarrassing, although some people might have seen it that way. Your moms were a thing of tremendous gravity in your life. You were a fledgling they had fed and clothed and cleaned up after and loved for years and years, and soon you would be taking flight, you'd be gone. Maybe that was why you found yourself glancing down at the hardwood floor at the side of your mom's. It was a lot to take in at 10 p.m. to be honest. But the sound at the front door alerted them both to your presence. The two halves of that piece of art moved in alignment and turned. Welcome back, sweetie. Nice of you to drop by, Brittany. Will you be staying with us long? A classic mom joke. You babbled out the whole Terry's organizing a last-minute party for Randy. Don't tell anyone, been out all day, and by the way, I need to make cupcakes tonight situation. Not to mention that I'm going over to Baxter's house. Do we have any ingredients I can use situation? There was a whole lot of situation to cover.
Fantastic.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful, Brittany. I'm sure Miranda will be delighted. You're all working so hard. It's getting late though, and you've been going for most of the day. Mom was eyeing the wall clock and gave you a playful pout. Are you sure you don't want to call it a night and let your mom and me handle the baking? Mom gave you a pointed look up and down, and her brow furrowed in a corrugation of concern. Frankly, you look like you're about to kneel over. Or keel over. I don't know what this is. You won't be up too much partying tomorrow. It's important not to push yourself too hard. In your semi-delirious state, you had to admit that they both had a point. The idea of heading straight upstairs and collapsing onto your bed, dead to the universe, was pure bliss, but you wouldn't give in. You shook your head declining the offer. Miranda was your friend, and you'd given Terry your word that you'd take care of it. Besides, it wasn't as if your mom hadn't also worked today. Mom's tiny frown deepened, so disappointed not to be allowed to baby you, but it was all in good humor.
Bye.
Alright, we won't push it. So long as you're sure Baxter is okay with you wreaking havoc with his immaculate kitchen. Ma let out an unbridled snort. He is a teenager living on his own, Pam. How immaculate could that kitchen be? You opened your mouth to defend Baxter and all other teenagers before realizing that it hardly counted if the only reason he had a clean kitchen was that he had never used it in the first place. If his tone earlier was anything to go by, he'd probably even thank you for making a mess. It might brighten up the place. You didn't say any of this to your moms, though. You made it clear to them that Baxter had assured you it was a-okay. It was his idea to begin with, after all. He'd been insistent on helping like certain other people you could mention. This mollified your parents. Though they teased, they were acting entirely out of consideration for your temporary neighbor. Too bad Baxter Ward had outconsidered them already. I understand. You'll handle it like the grown-ups you are. At least let us help you carry the ingredients together before you go. Pam, do you think you could get the... Already on it. Mom had headed towards the kitchen and began pulling things out of cupboards. Your mom and I actually have some leftover boxes of chocolate cake mix from... Oh, I forget what it was for now, but you're welcome to take it all, honey. That should save you some time. The frosting will have to be made fresh, but I always find that the easiest part. Oh, and we also have... Mom's arm shot out from behind the fridge door, clutching a large tube of cream cheese. She placed it next to a row of bright red boxes of cake mix. And half a dozen eggs on the counter. You should take some extra muffin tins too, just in case. If Baxter's oven is big enough, you can bake multiple batches at once instead of doing it in stages. He might not need it, but being prepared never hurt anybody. Your mom paused, a thoughtful look on her face. Unless you were making a plan to, say, assassinate someone, then your preparations would be designed to... Pamela, the muffin tins. Right, muffin tins. We have two you can take along. Cupcake liners, too. While they were meant to only help, your mom did all the work getting the supplies. And soon you found yourself ready to head on over to Baxter's condo. They kissed you, one on either cheek, and shooed you enthusiastically out the door. You hurried across the street, lugging your cargo in 2 large grocery store branded totes. Once up the front steps to Baxter's house, you gingerly rearranged things so you were able to grab the doorknob. As promised, Baxter had left it unlocked, a panel of light spread over your feet. Steeling yourself in preparation for the last stretch of an interminable day, you gripped the bag handles tighter and stepped inside. You had lived opposite this house for as long as you could remember, almost as long as you'd been alive. You had never been allowed inside before today. You'd almost taken it for granted. You didn't have time to let the newness of the experience sink in, though you did take a brief look about as you moved tentatively through the entryway. The interior design was modern, and the whole house was scrupulously clean. You noticed the kitchen directly opposite from the main sitting room. Baxter was waiting for you beside the fridge, and swiveled around when he heard you enter. Oh, you're here. Excellent. Welcome, welcome. I'm afraid I can't be more of a proper host on your first visit to my temporary home, but we have a deadline and we should try our best to stick to it. Were you able to find everything we need from your house? Many places might be closed this late, but I'm not opposed to a trip to the grocery store if necessary. You casually lifted the 2 large bags of ingredients and baking supplies and placed them on the counter between you. No need, I managed to get everything. You both made a start on packing the bags of ingredients, but before you could get very far, there was a sudden exclamation from Baxter. In your hands were 2 boxes of cake mixture. Oh, hallelujah, I was hoping you'd bring something similar. Being that genuinely glad, you couldn't help but let your eyes widen in surprise. Are you not much of a baker? Baxter sheepishly raked a hand through his iconically colored hair. Practically speaking, I actually haven't the faintest idea what kind of baking I'm capable of, though the probability suggests that it's unlikely to be much. To tell you the truth, I have never baked before in my entire life, whether using a pre-prepared mix or not. I only imagine that this way would be easier potentially. That's okay, I'm pretty good at it myself. And the decorating is a cinch too, I've got this. Baxter gave a newly pleased reappraisal with no small amount of relief mixed in. He bobbed a comical little bow. In that case, I will place myself entirely at your disposal, Brittany. It's my honor to be your humble assistant for this evening. More like your beautiful assistant. You snickered but kept the thought to yourself. He didn't need to be distracted. Let's get baking, shall we? You finished unpacking the remaining ingredients, lining them all up carefully on the countertop. Baxter took the second bag and did the same. That reminds me. I might have been a bit hyperbolic when talking about how barren my fridge is earlier. It's not as if the thing is completely empty. At the time, I wanted to assure you that it wouldn't be any trouble for you to come and make use of it, and there is definitely plenty of room. But I'm not completely incapable of providing a basic level of hospitality. If you're ever hungry or thirsty, let me know. This news came as a relief to you, probably not for the reason that Baxter was expecting. Sure, it was great you wouldn't starve while you were here, but mostly you were glad to hear that Baxter wasn't living on his own with nothing to eat in the house. That mental image had been so lonely. You thanked Baxter for the author, although you weren't in the mood for anything at present. At some point in the conversation, Baxter had rummaged around in a cupboard and added a third muffin tray to the two of yours. This kitchen happened to be supplied with one of these already, but thank you for bringing the spares in case of emergency. As often happened in your life, you found yourself offering a prayer of thanks to your mom for reminding you of the blindingly obvious. Actually, I think we should use them all. It's pretty inefficient to bake only one tray of cakes at a time. Depending on how big your oven is, we could do three together. Baxter's eyebrows lifted a fraction in surprise. That's true, there should be enough space. The pans aren't terribly large. I'll double check. He picked up one of the trays, walked over to the oven, and opened it up. He put it inside, took it back out, and then tried putting it in again long ways. Then he nodded, apparently satisfied. Yes, that will do it, especially if we share more than one shelf. 3 dozen cupcakes at once, we could almost start a bakery. He was more than a little tickled by the idea, so you refrained from pointing out that he'd first have to know a bit more about baking to actually run one. Another matter squared away, where shall we begin? Without saying another word, you tore into the cake mix. We'll start with the batter, which is the mix plus water, oil, and eggs. Normally you'd use milk, but the mix we're using has powdered milk in it to begin with, so water is good. I see. We also need to set the oven to preheat to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Excellent, that's relatively straightforward. The pair of you promptly made a start. Measuring out the ingredients into a mixing bowl didn't present any real challenge. Baxter insisted on cracking the eggs. Even I know how to do that much. With everything together in one bowl, you started to stir it together using a wooden spoon. While you were mixing the batter, Baxter diligently placed 36 miniature paper cupcake liners into the tins. Once he was finished, he came and peered over your shoulder into the bowl. Is it ready? You gave a firm nod. You had the batter at a good, even consistency, moderately thick, while still being runny enough to pour. How are we meant to get it into the trays? A spoon, perhaps? A serving spoon would do fine, although a rubber spatula would come in handy for getting the last bits of batter out of the bowl. You picked them both out of the utensil drawer. Portioning out the batter into the cupcake tins was where things started to get more involved. You took care of filling the 2 tins you brought from home, while Baxter made the effort on his own tin by himself. You managed to get the batter sitting evenly in all the cases without spilling. Baxter's pan didn't fare so well, however. His portions were uneven, and some of the mixture had dribbled off the spoon and onto the tray, which had to be wiped down. He mumbled a quiet apology, clearly embarrassed, but you squashed it with an encouraging grin. He'd performed his duty, and you were grateful for the help. Baxter cautiously lifted the trays one at a time into the hot oven, placing 2 onto the top shelf and sliding the last one in underneath. Then he checked the instructions again and set a timer on his phone. There was enough cake batter left to fill another 2 trays at a rough estimate, but the 3 in the oven were all you had, so you covered the bowl with a shrink wrap and put it in the fridge. By this point, it was nearly 11 o'clock, but Baxter had remained perky and chipper as the night wore on. There was a term for people of his ilk. Baxter was a night owl. While the cakes were in the oven, you had to take care of the frosting next. You could remember a recipe without any trouble. Mom was right. It was one of the easier parts of making a cake, all told. You recited the necessary ingredients aloud. As you went down the list, Baxter foraged around the countertop and handed the named items to you, which you added to a fresh mixing bowl. Then he dove underneath the counter for a moment and popped back up sporting a handheld electric whisk. You inserted the 2 metal beaters into the mixture and switched to a low setting. Then you turned the whisk on. Once the mixture was settled, you gradually upped the speed. Once again, Baxter was rather awestruck by the ease with which you handled the process. He'd been giving the electric whisk a nervous side eye ever since it was brought out. If I had been given charge of that device, a dusting of sugar would have been the least of our concerns. We might have spent the entire night scraping cream cheese off the walls. You chuckled and continued to smooth out the spread. While you doted on the bowl, Baxter peered over you with interest, leaning close in order to get a better look. It was a touch closer than what might be considered strictly polite, and there was something about the proximity of his body that made it harder than usual to concentrate on the task at hand. You certainly didn't mind per se, but still, you were operating dangerous equipment here. You could easily pick out the smell of his aftershave. You swallowed. At some point, he concluded that he was crowding you overmuch, so he took a few small steps back to a safer distance. He sort of lounged against the far counter, trying to make it appear as though he'd always intended to do so. Baxter worked quite hard behind the scenes to give off the impression that everything he did was totally effortless. Maybe it came from being a dancer. You pondered these things during the tedious mixing process. It was so cute. Of course, you already knew Baxter was pretty adorable. It wasn't long before you had the frosting looking halfway decent and turned the whisk off. Baxter took this as his cue to come back over, smiling pleasantly. Thanks for taking care of that, Brittany. Come on, it was a team effort. You're too kind. I suppose we can say I provided emotional support then. I had originally planned to put the frosting in the fridge while we wait for the cakes to finish, though that might make it too difficult to spread later on. What do you think? You'd been about to say the same thing, so you merely nodded in approval. It was nice to see that he was beginning to figure things out. At this point, you were inclined to relax a little bit. Even with the frosting taken care of and the comforting smell of baking in the air, Baxter was in the mood to keep himself busy. In fact, your success with the cakes, however relative that success might be, had put him in an industrious frame of mind. You watched as he carefully donned a pair of rubber gloves, black of course, and began to fill the sink with water in order to wash the bowls and other baking equipment. While the faucet was running, he also took out some cloths and surface cleaner, with the intent of wiping down the countertops wherever there were traces of cake mix powder and batter. You elected to help out. He gave you a silent smile of gratitude as you picked up one of the rags and the bottle of cleaner. You didn't exchange words, there was no need. Suddenly, there was a bright tinkling sound. It jolted you out of whatever you thought you'd been having. Baxter's hand went to his back pocket. The timer on his phone had run out.
Exciting.
The cakes are done. He was genuinely excited by the prospect, hastily jabbing at his screen to turn off the alarm, then grabbing a nearby pair of oven mitts with pictures of cats on. They must have belonged to the owner of the condo rather than Baxter himself, since the fabric was a deep red color. The cats were all black and white, though. You suppose that counted. Carefully, cautiously, he eased the 3 baking pans out of the oven, placing them one by one onto the granite counter. He even recalled which had gone in first, second, and third, and removed them in proper order. The cakes looked good. They'd risen uniformly, and the color was a nice, rich chocolate brown. They hadn't dried out either. You could see a faint, moist sheen on the surface. You chimed up as you admired your handiwork. Do you have anything to go underneath the pans to protect the counter, I mean? Oh, that's a good point. I don't think there's anything here, though. It should be fine, hopefully. The stone is real, not a veneer over less sturdy material. Baxter stared down at the case, his face thoughtful. Then he removed the oven gloves, folded them on the tabletop, and pinched the bridge of his nose, eyes closed. I dread to ask, but how many of these were we supposed to make? I've only now realized I've never asked Terry how much food she needs. Oh, you hadn't thought of that. While it had been decided you'd bring cupcakes, Cherry had never said anything about quantity. She simply wanted another dessert besides her cake. You explained as much to Baxter. He breathed in through his nose and then sighed deeply and opened his eyes. Perhaps that's because Terry doesn't know herself. That's understandable. This whole party was extempore to begin with. I do hope 36 is enough. Even with the spare batter, we don't have time to prepare another batch. Not if they're too cool and be frosted before the event. I must extend my thanks once again that you brought your family's spare tins over. Otherwise, the crowd would have been fighting over a paltry 12 cupcakes. Thank Moms for letting us have them. That was lucky. Speaking of your family, you checked the clock on your phone to see how long ago you bade them farewell. Wow, it already gone past midnight. You couldn't believe it gotten so late, and you couldn't even start the frosting until the cakes had been cooled, which might take another hour or more. You put the phone down, glancing in Baxter's direction. You were acutely aware he was doing you a favor, more than one for that matter, and you didn't want to further impose if it had been an issue. You decided to put the question to him directly as much as you were able to. What would be worse, staying up even later to finish everything tonight, or getting up bright and early tomorrow morning? Baxter scrunched up his face, his boyish nose wrinkling in distaste. Waking early, no question. Of course, by now you'd suspected he would say that even before you'd asked, but you wanted to give him the choice. It's fine, don't worry. I will stay awake as long as you needed to see this endeavor through. I understand what I was signing up for when I offered to help, more or less. Though I honestly don't mind if you head home and get some rest. I can idle around while the cakes have set and then, well, you know, the rest. Until today, I've never baked before, and by extension, I am 99% certain I've never frosted a cake before either, but I can manage. He cleared his throat, crossing his arms with finality. The point is, I don't intend to quit until the end, the bitter but hopefully not bitter in taste end. I could never make you do all that by yourself, Baxter. I appreciate it greatly, both your continued company and your help. We'll get through this with, what was it? The awesome and terrible power of teamwork. Bow down. Of course, all hail. The commitment made, you decided to put the cakes in the freezer for a short while to help speed the cooling process along. The 3 tins fit snugly inside, nothing left to do but wait. You know, this was actually pretty fun. Oh, there's no need to sound quite so surprised about it, but I agree. It's been a delightful experience on the whole. Baxter pressed firmly against the freezer door, making positively sure that it had shut. He then tapped at his phone, setting another timer before glancing in your direction. Since we need to wait a little while longer, why don't we take this opportunity to rest? You're welcome to use either the couch or a chair in the living room. You had hoped he couldn't tell with your efforts to hide it, but by now you probably look dreadful no matter how hard you tried. I'll take a rest on the couch then. Of course, please go right ahead. Oh, before you go, he held up a hand gesturally vaguely about. I had almost forgotten where we were. I'll join you shortly, but can I bring you anything refreshing to drink? I was about to get myself a little something. What are you having? He tapped a finger to his chin and made a non-committal sound. You'll find out soon enough. Why? This was rather unusual, you privately observed. Baxter would never normally dodge a direct question. He was always straightforward, even unnecessarily so, as Cove might say. Oh well, no use losing sleep over it. Not when you were losing so much already tonight. You made your way into the sitting area, making yourself at home on the generously sized couch. It was unexpectedly comfortable for one so fashionable. The house was built on an open plan to the extent that you could see Baxter over in the kitchen from where you were waiting. He opened one of the cabinets and took out something that looked suspiciously like one of the plastic champagne flutes you and Terry had bought earlier today, except out of his real glass. Why are you drinking alcohol? From the fridge, he fetched a large green bottle from a side shelf which you hadn't spotted before. He needed to screw a cork off the top. Out of it poured a fuzzy liquid, pale gold in color. You're actually drinking in front of our newborn cupcakes?
Yeah.
Correct. The reply came immediately without so much as a glance in your direction. He had no compunction about what he was doing. Can I try some? Baxter finally looked over at you, a wary smirk on his face. Then he reached into the cabinet again, retrieving a second champagne flute. I hate to be a bad influence, yet it'd be hypocritical not to offer you the same opportunity to misbehave that I afford myself, and I'd hate that even more. Exceptionally poor manners. It's alright, I was the one who asked. Without another word, Baxter poured a fresh glass, taking them both in his hands. He carefully navigated his way out of the kitchen and perched himself on one of the chairs. You took the drink he held out, then he clinked your glasses together and raised the one he had to his mouth. I won't tell if you won't. His lips curled mischievously. But look at me, drinking on the job. What a shameful way to start my new party planning occupation. Pro bono, naturally. Cheers, Brittany. He took a long, slow sip of his champagne, closing his eyes and savoring the taste. He smacked his lips and let out a low of enjoyment. Though you wouldn't have admitted it, the laid-back manner with which he had handled such an illicit topic was rather beguiling. Maybe you had a bit of a soft spot for the bad boys. Oh my god, your thoughts snagged on something Baxter had said a moment ago. His joke about drinking while on the clock. In a certain sense, you reasoned it wasn't so much of a joke after all. Baxter had readily committed to helping you and Terry organize Miranda's party at extremely short notice. He dedicated himself to the endeavor not just today, but tomorrow as well. All of that for a group of people he'd only recently come to know. Why are you trying so hard for people you just met? I know we're, dating, but still, you're going above and beyond here. Baxter didn't meet your gaze, his eyes wandering around the room as he gently swirled the champagne in his glass. He took another slow sip before answering, intentionally dramatic.
My pleasure.
You have to understand, I'm doing this because I want to. There's no ulterior or self-sacrificing reason underneath it all. I couldn't have devised a more pleasant way to spend my time here even if I tried, and to be frank, I have tried. I didn't come to Sunset Bird totally devoid of any plans or ideas. You and your friends have invited me to participate in an event with great significance to you. It's a profound gesture to show to a relative stranger. When it's over and I'm long gone from here, I hope you can all look back on this party for years to come, maybe for the rest of your lives, and treasure the memory. And if I'm a part of that memory, then that is satisfaction enough. Though perhaps I'm in danger of giving my contribution too much credit. He was smiling, but it was a muted, distant thing like a car headlamp seen away long off, ready to turn a corner. It felt akin to a farewell, even though he wasn't leaving yet. The glimmer was gone as his eyes met yours over the rim of his champagne flute. Besides, I'm on vacation. I have nothing but day after day of generous free time. It would be silly to begrudge its being used, especially as it's easier for me. This party is only a party from my perspective, which means I can put my head back and simply bask in the occasion with the highs and the lows. For you and your friends, this is important and has weight. I have to say, I'm curious about the situation. You and Terry are both determined to make this a big event, but for all that, it seems a rather one-off affair. Not wishing to sound critical, but if you were in the regular habit of throwing each other parties, I would have expected better preparation for, well, the preparation. Is there something about the specific birthday that warranted such a special affair? You found yourself taken aback by this. It wasn't like you hadn't thought about it either. You'd been doing as much earlier tonight, but what with the rush to get all the ingredients and baking the cakes, you'd been distracted since then. All at once, the feelings you'd suppressed bubbled back up to the surface. Slowly, hesitantly, you begin to talk. This might be the last birthday we get to celebrate together. I've known Cove basically my whole life. Terry, Moran, and Randy, not as long. Still, they're important to me. Soon we'll all be grown up and we'll head off to different places in life. And I can't just sit around without making the most of what we have left. No way. That's why this party has to be amazing. At least that's how I feel. As he listened to your explanation, Baxter regarded you with a solemn expression. There was a pinch in his forehead where his eyebrows had come together. He was all sympathy. I'm sorry you're going through a difficult experience. I wish I knew how to evaluate matters. It's so uncertain. Sadly, there are a few, if any, guarantees in the world. Or rather, such is the case for the vast majority of us. I can't believe there are people who remain close to each other in spite of distance and years between them. Those who will reign in your life always. His countenance had softened, a faint hopefulness lightened his face as moonlight on water. He spoke with tenderness.
Maybe you will find those kinds of people.
I believe you will find those kinds of people, Brittany. I really do. And while nobody can say for sure, I'd bet that you already have. Because I don't want to ask that, because, like, he's not talking about him, he's talking about leaving it, bro. I hope you can have someone like that as well. You're too kind. I'm a skeptic, so I won't hold my breath yet, but who can say what life has in store for us? Wait, I want to say this.
Wonderful.
I think I found him. I'm so glad to hear that. We should all be so lucky. Maybe it was partly due to the lateness of the hour or the ordeal you were both wading through, but you were overcome with a strong surge of affection for Baxter. He'd be the first to play it down, but you knew the memories of your time with him were going to be precious indeed. Aww! Give him a hug! Baxter simply wrapped his arms tight around you and kind. Okay, yeah, kiss him. As you pressed your lips to his, Baxter responded somewhat hesitantly at first. You could feel his hands hovering a hair's breadth above your forearms like he wasn't certain what to do. Gradually, he eased into it, holding you gently while moving his mouth against yours. There was an uncharacteristic nervousness to his touch. When you pulled away, you saw that his eyes had been narrowly open. Baxter let out a heavy breath, pressing a hand to his sternum. His pale complexion was stained with a vibrant flush. It was such a captivating color in contrast to his usual monochrome. He cleared his throat and leaned away to place his champagne flute over on one of the coffee tables nearby, eyes avoidant. Perhaps it's best not to be too distracted when we decorate the cakes after all, or drunk for that matter. This was directly inwardly as much as it was to you. A low murmur, an attempt to calm himself. There was a long pause. The only sound was the faint whisper of a car passing by, the gurgle of the fridge from the kitchen. Ah! The two of you jumped in surprise as Baxter's phone went off like a shot in the night. It was the alarm he'd set when you put the cakes in the freezer. He shakily turned it back off, getting up from his seat. A few seconds hesitation and then, well now, those cupcakes had better be ready for us. It had the vaguely dangerous quality of a threat, which was so absurd after the past few minutes that you couldn't help but giggle. By this point, even your fumes were running on fumes. With a Herculean degree of effort, you forced your feeble human form into action. They should award medals for this kind of thing, you thought to yourself. Terry should give you a darn medal. But this was it, the final stretch before the finish line. You left the living room and returned to the kitchen, where Baxter popped open the freezer door. You retrieved a bowl of frosting and a plastic bag for piping, along with the tubes of glitter Terry had given you hours ago. We can each take half and do the frosting and dusting in one go, right? Wish me luck. That sounds like a plan. It'll be fine. You both set about this last task with a grim determination. You worked quickly, not sharing any conversation or otherwise distracting from the job at hand. You frosted and dusted, each of the 36 cupcakes being lined up along the counter as they were completed. Oh, drat. Make that 35. The singleton Baxter dropped splattered helpless on the kitchen floor. There was a break in the frosting, a moment of respect for cake now lost, then you both shrugged. One extra cupcake wasn't about to make a world of difference, though. Terry might have disagreed. What Terry didn't know wouldn't hurt her. When the surviving cupcakes had been properly outfitted with sugar, more sugar on top of the existing sugar to be precise, you stepped back to admire your creation. There was a marked difference between your half and Baxter's, besides the fact that he was now one cake short. Yours were quaint little jewels with matching tops. His glitter wasn't even, and much of his frosting had come out in loop-sided heaps. They should still taste good, and that was just as important. You two fished out 4 airtight plastic containers from a lower door and stashed the cupcakes inside. Lids were closed, boxes were in the fridge, and finally the door was shut. It was finished. You had survived. You checked the time. It was almost 2 in the morning. Oh, screw that. You could have almost cried. Baxter rubbed his tired eyes, then massaged his temples. I have a newfound respect for bakers everywhere. I shall look forward to having all my future life events professionally catered, even if it costs a fortune. He stared down at the miserable remains of a casualty cupcake on the tile. Never again. You managed a small smile, despite the fact that your face was presently made out of solid concrete and suffering. Ignore the mess. I can take care of it. I'll see you back to your house. I fear your parents might be worried that you've been out so late. You reassured him that it was fine. Your moms knew you were just across the street, and you said it might take a while. You weren't concerned. Baxter was relieved to hear it. The journey home was a blur, a disconnected sequence of images. As promised, Baxter walked with you down the steps of his condo and across the road. You remembered the scraping of your feet on the sidewalk, the gentle touch of Baxter's hand to the small of your back, guiding you into the house. You ambled through your childhood home in the dark by feel and instinct alone. You counted the stairs in silence, tiptoed into your room, approached the bed, and then... You jerked awake with a start. There was a loud knocking coming from your bedroom door.
How are you?
Kiddo, you awake? You were in your bedroom. You were pretty sure about that anyway. 80% positive at least. You were too drowsy to come up with any more creative place to be. But besides the basic and likely fact of existing in your bedroom, you found that you hadn't the faintest idea of what was going on. There had been a voice, right? You remembered a voice. Terry phoned the house early, but you missed her. There it was again, your mom's voice. As you slowly blinked awake, realization came to you in stages. You recalled the events of yesterday. The live sensations swam in your memory, a frantic afternoon of planning, of shopping, and of sugar. You remembered the things that you and Baxter had decided not to talk about. At some point, you had ended up in your bed and asleep, but you didn't recall setting an alarm. Terry had said she picked you up at 7 this morning, so she was your wake-up call for the day. You poked your head out from beneath the blanket and called out, I'm awake, I'm awake. Standing in the middle of your room, your mind blanked. Then you scrunched up your face really tight and allowed your brain to form a coherent thought. Miranda's birthday. It was Miranda's birthday. You hastily changed into a fresh set of clothes, tried to tame your bedhead as best you could, and then raced downstairs. You bade your moms a quick farewell.
Have fun.
Have fun, sweetie. And say happy birthday to Miranda from us, Kay? You had barely enough time to yell a quick thank you over your shoulder before you were out the front door. When you stepped outside, Cove was there waiting for you on the sidewalk. Hi, Cove! The number of times you'd left the house to find him there, it sometimes made you wonder if he lived on your sidewalk. He hadn't the faintest trace of sleepiness on him, but then Cove rarely did. He was a tiny sun at any time of day, but mornings were when he shone the brightest. You exchanged your usual greetings, but rather than stop to chat, you kept on walking by. As you explained to him, the cakes were at Baxter's place and you need to go pick them up. Oh, right. Cove didn't tag along, content to leave you to your own devices. That made sense. He wasn't yet at the point of seeking out Baxter's company willingly. It wasn't likely to start right now. When you knocked on Baxter's door, it popped right open like your mere tap had knocked it off its hinges. Hi, Baxter.
Nice to see you.
Good morning. I've been expecting you. You had gotten that impression. He moved aside in the hallway to let you pass, and you strode briskly into the condo. He followed you into the kitchen, where you found the cakes in their containers stacked on the countertop. The big day is finally here, excuse me. His composure had been broken with an enormous yawn, which was enough to throw you for a loop. You'd never seen him yawn before. He hid it behind his hand, but it was definitely there. Hey, I'm just wondering, what time did you go to bed last night? Truthfully, I didn't make it to bed. You weren't surprised by now. Baxter was just like that, but you still felt a pang of guilt. You were putting him through the ringer with this party. It's not an issue. I felt rather rough after I finished cleaning yesterday and took the liberty of having a nice long shower. I also prefer to avoid going to bed with damp hair. But no sooner had I gotten it dry than I realized I wouldn't be able to get any substantial amount of sleep before I need to be up again anyway, so I stayed awake instead. Even so, maybe try to take a nap sometime today. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
Enough about me. Let's take these delicacies outside and wait for Terry. She texted me earlier to let me know she was on her way. I imagine you received a similar message. Terry had indeed sent you a message, although it was too early in the day to be hit with something with so many exclamation points. How much sleep had she gotten? He picked up 2 of the waiting boxes, leaving you to carry the remainder. You didn't linger, heading straight for the front entrance. Baxter came up behind you with the key. He had trouble with the logistics, eventually resorting to balancing the containers in one hand like a serving tray before closing and locking the door with the other. Back on the street, Cove was still loitering on the street down by the front gate, blissfully unaware of what the secret party planning committee had gone through for this. Baxter called over to him, full of characteristic good cheer. Good morning, neighbor. Hey. Cove's response was quiet, more distracted than aloof. He was peering with interest at the boxes you were carrying. He had hopes about their contents. The plastic was kind of foggy and translucent, so it wasn't quite possible to tell what was inside, but Cove initiated that whatever it was edible. The boy was like a shark sometimes.
See?
My friend, you are looking at 35 of the finest freshly baked chocolate cupcakes with cream cheese frosting. Cove's face visibly lit up at the word cake as if he'd been offered one already. That's great. I believe Terry is also bringing a proper birthday cake from home as well. Cove's smile grew even wider. You hoped Baxter was taking notes. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach was a phrase you suspected had originally been written about Cove. The promise of treats was far and away the most exciting aspect of any party, at least to him. Your childhood companion was so silly, you thought. He'd provided you with most of a lifetime's worth of entertainment for free. In fact, someone had tried to pay you to have it. Those won't be the only sweets either. There's going to be a chocolate fountain too. Cove's mouth formed a perfectly round O, and you thought you could see sparkles in his eyes, or maybe they were sprinkles. What are you guys bringing to dip in it? Strawberries, marshmallows, banana slices, pretzels? While Cove was busy listing every single item he thought might reasonably taste good drenched in liquefied chocolate, it struck you that you didn't know what the answer to that question was. Was Terry handling that, or were you supposed to have thought of something? You exchanged a nervous glance with Baxter, who shifted uncomfortably from one foot to the other. Very not good. Baxter didn't have a clue either, which could only mean that you had never even discussed the matter with Terry yesterday. It was a cupcake quality quandary all over again. Your shoulders slumped. You had honestly never anticipated organizing a party would involve coordinating so many different things. Your mind simply couldn't keep track of it all. Seeing your distress, Baxter slipped into his usual mode of cool cucumberness. Let's think about this. Terry took the fountain home with her, so we can sensibly assume that she has taken charge of it, and by extension the offerings to dip into the fountain. However, time isn't on our side, and luck has not been either. In order to be 100% absolutely crystal clear about the matter, we should text her and ask. Although she's currently driving. He trailed off, a hint of anxiety managing to mar even his carefully schooled demeanor. You all exchanged a new set of nervous glances, Cove joining in this time. This problem was one even he could worry about. We could grab stuff. Our houses are right here, and you know what Terry's like. If she knew what she was going to do, she would have said so already. Baxter inclined his head in agreement, bending down to place his boxes of cakes on the ground near the condo's front entrance. Then he straightened, pulling himself up to his full height. We are going to 𝐬𝐮𝐸 homes to retrieve some suitable samplers. Terry will arrive and take us to the venue, and there will be no further problems. His voice resonated with a forceful air of finality. Intense insistence was as close as Baxter got to losing his temper. Then he added as an afterthought, unless of course we are hit by a car on the way there, but quite frankly, I will be much too tired to care about dying by then. Let's settle this. He was right, it had to be done. You simply put down your box of cupcakes next to Baxter's, then the three of you made a run for it, each going your separate ways. You dashed over the road and hopped inside your house, heading directly for the kitchen. You opened cabinets at random, racking your brain for everything to bring. What would go in a chocolate fountain? You wished you'd paid more attention to what Cove had been saying earlier, though you did remember to swipe the bunch of ripe bananas off the counter. Then you hit the jackpot on the highest shelf of your family's cupboard. Back outside, the three of you examined the spoils of your improv raiding party. There were several types of assorted fruits, marshmallows, some cookies, pretzels, and a box of granola bars. This last item, one of Cove's had Baxter chuckling under his breath. I have to say, I've never heard of granola bars being dipped in a fountain before, chocolate or otherwise. Hey, would you rather I had brought protein bars instead? No, this is good. It will be a novel addition, not to mention easy for people to hold value utensil. Besides, I hardly contributed at all. He gestured a little timidly at the bag of salted pretzels, his sole addition to the haul. It was all he had to bring. You'd save the day by finding your mom's and Liz's special treats. 3 types of cookies and big marshmallows. They'd have to sacrifice for this event as everyone else did. Right, I brought some bags along to put everything in. I can carry those while you two handle the cakes. You and Baxter both praised Cove's quick thinking and gratefully dumped everything into the bags he held out. Then you gathered up the boxes of cupcakes. You mingled about, making ideal conversation about the upcoming party and trading some anecdotes with Cove about the baking processes from the night before. He was especially mournful to hear about the incident that had claimed the 36th cupcake. But soon there was a telltale sound of a vehicle approaching at speed. The Brooks van pulled up alongside you, and the horn honked loudly and greeting Terry had arrived. You could see the enormous grin on her face through the front windshield. She enthusiastically stuck her arm out the driver's window and waved. Cove beamed and waved back. I'll get the door. He pulled open the sliding side door, jumping inside and striking up a conversation with Terry immediately. You clambered in after him. The car was normally spacious, but since you filled it up with party equipment yesterday, it had gotten crammed. You made food for the additional food wherever you could.
Hey, buddies.
Hey, buds, are you ready to make like an RPG and party up? Not really. Were you ready to have a chocolate fountain? What did you bring to dip in it? Being subjected to this accusation right out of the gate knocked Terry completely off her stride. Her expression was utterly baffled. Cove, how do you know about the chocolate fountain? I almost forgot we even had a chocolate fountain. Then Terry clapped a hand to her forehead, her eyes wide. Oh shoot, I forgot to bring stuff for the chocolate fountain. Terry started panicking, but Baxter promptly headed that off at the pass with a casual rap of his knuckles against the external wall of the van. He leaned in through the side door, having stopped short of climbing inside after you and Cove. No need to worry about it, Terry. We thought that might have happened, so we took the liberty of bringing along some of our offerings of our own. You guys got the goods?
Of course.
Yep, right here. Cove held up one of the bags of extra supplies he was still clutching, jiggling it enticingly. Terry placed a hand heavily to her heart. Crap, you are my saviors, but don't scare me like that. I thought this party was a bust, and do you know how many times I felt that in the last 12 hours? You're lucky you're not doing this by yourself, Terry. Oh yeah, you got that right. Remind me to treat you to something once this is all over. Deal. Hold on, you barely did anything yet, Cove. So, he is present now, and it was thanks to him we realized what we amiss. Or, what was amiss. Cove speaks for us all, I think. You have yourself a deal, Terry. Fine. Slowly but surely, you felt some of the stress from the last several hours fade away in the company of your friends. Maybe this whole thing would work out alright in the end. Baxter gently tapped the side of the vehicle again to grab everyone's attention.
Sound alright?
That's safely out of the way. I'll part with you three here. I'm going to drive along behind in my own car if that's alright. Okay. Sure, that's cool with me, man. Terry didn't really get what Baxter was doing, but she wasn't about to start raising objections. A brief glance at the two of you confirmed that neither you nor Cove had a clue between you either. Splendid. I'll see you very soon. He punctuated his farewell by shutting the van door, leaving you and Cove to buckle yourselves in. Terry watched in the rearview mirror as Baxter approached his vehicle and got inside. Once he'd fastened his seatbelt and flashed her a quick thumbs up, he put the van in drive and pulled out. Baxter followed. Soon the four of you were off. You sat with the boxes of cupcakes stacked precariously in your lap, your arms wrapped around the sides to prevent the tower from toppling. You were hyper aware of every last dip and bump in the familiar roads like you'd never been before. As you went along, Terry laid out the plan for when you arrived. So, the idea is to make sure we get all the snacks and drinks and that stuff ready first, in case we're missing anything or anything else. Then we gotta decorate everything as fast as physically possible before noon, basically. That's when people should start showing up. We're gonna order some sandwich platters and salad bowls and stuff on delivery. There should be there for people to eat along with the cake, sort of like a late lunch. Oh, and by we, I mean Randy's mom and dad. We're off the hook for that part. She threw her head back and whooped with a glee, a sound that was pure and clear as the morning. You felt her infectious enthusiasm. She continued. Anyways, Randy doesn't want to have her party drag on forever, and we'll need time to clean up before the place closes. So we're gonna wrap things up at the event before dinner. When the guests are gone, we'll have until 10 before we'll get kicked out of the room. Now, I won't sugarcoat it or even chocolate coat it, team. It's gonna be another long day for all of us. Just don't forget, Randy's gonna be amazed. It'll all be worth the effort. I just know it. You closed your eyes, leaning back against the seat of the van. Terry was speaking the truth, of course, about all of it. It was to be another grueling day. But you had your friends and you were grateful to be huddling the back of a van surrounded by a mountain of bags and 35 cupcakes in your lap, to be alive, to be there. You might have been in some danger of falling asleep again, sitting down for too long, but before you nodded off, Terry was parking the van in the lot outside a large building. It looked like it hosts generic offices rather than parties. You couldn't judge a book by its cover, apparently. We're here, everybody out. On command, you and Cove dutifully climbed out of the van. Baxter was pulling up in his car, having managed to sit close to Terry the whole way. When your group had reassembled, there was a brief exchange of greetings. Terry wasn't in the mood to dawdle, and her clapped her hands together. Time to get moving, people. We've got a whole party truck to unload. Aye, Captain. What he said.
Sure.
You and Terry carried your respective desserts while Cove and Baxter worked together to take a folded table from the back of the van. Terry led the way to the rented room. You peeked your head around the cupcake container and got your first look at the party space. Oh, this is pretty. It seriously was perfect for this, and exactly as Terry had originally described, shiny, pretty, and pink. On Terry's direction, the boys put the table down in what would eventually be the refreshment section of the party. They extended the legs and flipped it upright. Once it was stable on its feet, Baxter was quick to cover the surface with one of the golden tablecloths. It was ready to go. Ever so carefully, you set your plastic chest of bejeweled consumables down. With the opaque lids came off, the revealed frosted tops were still intact. On closer inspection, you could tell a few cupcakes on the left side of the container were slightly smushed, but the glittering coating hadn't rubbed off, so no one else would notice the imperfection. Ah! Terry's gleeful exclamation came from over your shoulder. She'd caught sight of your and Baxter's handiwork. That's what I'm talking about. The white cake with bits of rainbow confetti in her hands was the one element that was out of place with the theme. It was entirely glamorous, a relic of more childlike birthdays. But that's why you were certain Miranda would adore it. She hadn't completely outgrown old favorites. Terry put it next to the cupcakes and gave you a big thumbs up. You had everything you needed, and the biggest potential disasters had been avoided. You could focus on the rest of the preparation work with confidence. The whole secret party planning committee went for another run of supply gathering. Another table and piles of plastic bags were brought into the venue. On the third round, everything had been made inside. You carried a red cooler filled with chilled, sparkling cider. Terry hid that under the covered table until later. Then all four of you sat around the lit-up dance floor, taking stuff out of bags and sorting it into piles. Things for food on one half of the room, decorations on the other. Terry and Cove were both cross-legged. Baxter kept his legs stretched out. It was kind of like being a kid on Christmas, except instead of opening gifts, it was things you'd have to set up, and instead of piles of wrapping paper all around, it was plastic thank you for shopping bags. You still had plenty of fun, especially after it was somehow decided that Cove Holden was the perfect hook for the feather boas. One after another was tossed over his shoulders and into his lap until he looked like a multicolored big bird. Cove accepted the assignment with only a moderate amount of complaining. When the supplies were completely unpacked, Terry surveyed the collection of plates, napkins, utensils, plastic cups, and such. She announced that she had handled the snack and drink arrangements. She delegated you, Baxter, and Cove to do everything else with the room. After a salute, Terry left the circle and headed to her station. From under his cloak of feathers, Cove got busy snapping off tags and removing casings. You and Baxter followed his lead. The empty bags were repurposed for holding trash. Peacefully and productively, your little team worked away on different tasks until a groan of frustration echoed through the air. You glanced towards the opposite side of the room. Terry was shaking the chocolate fountain like she was trying to get a prize to fall out of it. Technical difficulties? Baxter stated the obvious. Everyone in the room was aware of Terry's struggles. Not to worry, I have a bit of experience with those beasts. I should be able to offer assistance. He announced his intentions as he got up. There wasn't much left that had packaging, and he wanted to make sure everything was alright, so you decided to go see Terry too. Cove was left to hold down the fort. He shrugged and one of the boas slipped down his back. You crossed the floor together, and with a wave, Baxter spoke out to the woman hunched over a table. Hello. Terry sprang up at the sound. Her face was despairing, and she skipped right past the greeting. How do you use this thing? You add the chocolate and it's supposed to go, right? Because it's not going. Baxter pursed his lips and cocked a hip considering. Basically, yes. You add the melted chocolate into the machine and turn it on. It takes about a minute, but should start to flow. We can troubleshoot. Wait, the melted chocolate? She released her clutch on the fountain. Doesn't it melt when you put it in? A pinch of frustration made Baxter wince. It was only momentarily. Then he was smiling placidly. He had to deliver bad news as pleasantly as possible. To use a chocolate fountain, the chocolate must be melted ahead of time. It won't cook in the machine. Those novelties aren't that sophisticated. What? I didn't know that. I didn't know you didn't know that. I should have asked. I should have known. I should have been the one to set it up in the first place. Baxter's regret grew and grew. You've never used one before, and I have. The both of them dropped their faces with a sigh. The dramatics of their actions were on entirely different levels. Baxter's dejection was subtle, restrained. Meanwhile, Terry couldn't have exaggerated her misery more. After Baxter used his own money to get it, and all the trouble you went to finding treats that could be used in it, the fountain ended up a useless metal tower. I'm sorry, I didn't know either. We are all the fool. Baxter straightened himself up. Like an actual professional, he viewed the situation from an objective distance and could give perspective to the more emotionally attached Terry. It's not too late quite yet. This is a temporary hitch. I will take the chocolate somewhere it can be melted and come back. I'll need some way to keep it warm during the trip. Perhaps a thermos would work? Would you be able to find a thermos and melt chocolate before the party starts? He chuckled a hand over his mouth. That is highly unlikely, but all you need to do is enjoy other parts of the event first. Dance, drink, eat one of the lovely cupcakes. Then he flicked his wrist, gesturing away from his face. I'll return at some point during the evening and the fountain will go up then. We can even act as if it was intentional to bring it out later. Ideally, the fountain can accompany the serving of the cake. No one has to know it was a problem factor. But you'd miss so much of the party. He flashed a bold smile. I wasn't invited to this party. My intention was to leave when it started regardless. What? What? It was as if the floor had dropped out from under you. Baxter had worked as hard as anyone else to make this party happen. He pulled an all-nighter for it. The fact he wasn't one of the guests was almost unbelievable. You glanced at Terry. She was frowning. The whole thing was a surprise. I never told Randy he was helping throw her party. She has no idea Baxter is here, and she's shy if she doesn't know somebody well. None of that was news to him. He was as unruffled as ever. Exactly, this is her birthday. It isn't her responsibility to host a near stranger, and because he elected to involve himself in the planning side of things. But you met her, so that doesn't make sense. Baxter was reasonable and mature, but that only made Terry feel worse. Her frown had deepened into a grimace. She'd piled job after job on his shoulders because he was just another part of the group in her mind. Now she realized too late that he wasn't and never had been. Miranda would want you here if she heard what you did. I do appreciate the thought, however, I must decline. I've had a great deal of fun. There's no need to include me further. Bro! In fact, I would prefer to leave the party. I want the event we worked on to be as good as it can be. I won't be throttled by a chocolate fountain. I won't make the atmosphere awkward by being present after. All I ask is that you enjoy the time we have together and enjoy the time when I'm not there. This still didn't sit right with you. Not at all. But what could you do? You couldn't decide for Miranda or for him whether Baxter attended or not. Terry accepted in the end, too. Okay, I get it. Thanks. Bye, Baxter. Why? Oh my god, you were so stupid. Take care. Bro. Why? I thought you were coming to the party. With that, he sauntered out of the room, a bag of unmelted chocolate in his hand and a smile on his face. In time with the shutting of the door, Terry smacked her palm against the table definitely. This is gonna be the best party I've ever done no matter what, because it's gonna be the only party I'll ever throw. Never again. Next time, somebody else is gonna have to be in charge. I'll just help. You massage the sides of your face. The strain was really starting to get to you. Come on, Brittany. He's not gonna let us down and we can't stop either. Let's finish this. Yeah. You spun around, only to come face to face with a fluffy Cove. He'd bury himself further in the feather boss and began fiddling with a balloon he must have inflated. Right, Cove was left to wait alone the entire time. He stared awkwardly, as did Terry. Is everything alright? We can only hope, Cove. We can only hope. Okay. Cove left it at that, not any more informed or assured. And so the party decorating continued with one less person. More balloons were blown up and placed about. Streamers were strung up, and you even moved a bench from a corner to the center stage. It would act as a makeshift throne for the queen of the day. Finally, all the trash bags were carted out of the event space and tossed into a dumpster outside. The three of you returned and stood in the center of the now cleared dance floor to admire your handiwork. Wall to wall, floor to ceiling, the room gleamed. It looks good. It does, actually does. Yeah, look at this place. Oh my god, we fancied it up. Terry was beaming wider than you'd ever seen. After a day and a half of almost non-stop preparations, you'd pulled off something pretty great. It was certainly a homemade arrangement by a group of friends at the last minute, but that was half of the charm. Your efforts were easy to see. You sat in a row along the edge of the stage, resting, waiting before the big event. No one talked. Cove tapped his foot. Until finally, Terry's phone went off. Ah! She read the message fervently. She murmured in haste. It's from Jude. The guests are arriving. I repeat, the guests are arriving. Miranda, her siblings, her parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, and other people. They're gonna be in this room any minute. Be ready. Terry shot from the back of the room to the front in a matter of seconds. She hit the music on. She then strung a few bags along her arms. Those ones hadn't been used for trash. Cove put the accessories in them for safekeeping after he was done wearing all the bows himself, of course. With that hanging over her, Terry stood in wait at the entrance. You and Cove joined her. Noises could be heard on the other side. Cove's hands clenched. Terry collapsed onto his chair like she was about to meet her maker. Then the door slowly began to open. On the other side, a small crowd was huddled together. At the head of it was Miranda herself. Oh my gosh! The dazzling pink party room was reflected in Miranda's big sparkling eyes. Terry threw her bag-laden arms into the air. None of them fell off, fortunately. Surprise! 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 As spoken, Miranda was overcome with surprise. Terry and Brittany and Cove? Yeah. That's right. What do you think of your party this year? Terry queried her friend eagerly, though the quickness of the question was partially motivated by a discreet anxiety. Miranda blinked and she knew. Her families weren't the ones who put up this event. She answered with wholehearted appreciation. I love it. It's amazing. Way nicer than I ever would have thought. And we surprised you? You really didn't know what we were up to? You're not just being nice? You definitely got me. I didn't think this much would happen. Especially since it's not my 18th birthday or 21st or anything like that. It's only 19. What? All your birthdays are a big deal. Randy giggled at Terry's assertion. While her eyes were closed, you and Terry shared a look. This party was more important than Miranda realized. Thanks a ton. This is exactly what I wanted and I didn't even know it. Cove let out a relieved breath. Terry pumped a fist vigorously and the bag she was holding flung around. Oh. Miranda's secret birthday bash was a hit. More and more guests gathered in wonder about it. They openly admired the room. Terry nodded, please. It's party time. Let's use the stuff we got. She dumped the contents of each sack on an empty end of a table for everyone to access. A bunch of sunglasses clattered out with the boas. On top of the pile was the white one. Terry stashed that back in the bag and threw it underneath the tablecloth. You mentally gave her your thanks for the save. Even if Baxter wasn't planning to use it, it was still for him. Miranda gave a clap. It was one delight after another today. Terry sported sunglasses and a purple feather boa. Cove just went for a pair of sunglasses. He had had enough of wearing those boas already. Or maybe it wasn't any fun when he was only allowed to take one. Aww. Aww. Miranda got her own oversized shades. But instead of a boa, she was granted the special birthday girl sash to set her apart from all the other attendees. You donned a boa and sunglasses. Nice, nice. All decked out for the party, Terry directed Miranda's attention to what else was on the tables. She was charmed anew when she saw the waiting rows of fake champagne and outright stunned with her eyes landed on the display of glittery cupcakes. So that's so pretty. Did you buy those? Nope, they're homemade. Really? They look like they're from a pro bakery. Thank you. Can I have one now, or are we waiting until it's time for cake? Miranda, it's your birthday. You can decide. She beamed. It was time for the queen to make her decree. Then I declare that we eat all cupcakes right now. What a gracious hostess.
Sounds good.
Works for me. In unison, the three of them reached out for a treat. Terry licked the shiny frosting first. That was most intriguing to her. Miranda broke the bottom of the cake off and stuck it into the frosting to make sure a cupcake sandwich before she took a bite. She'd seen it in a video one time and done it before, or done it since. Cove crammed half the dessert into his mouth at once. They each had their own unique way of enjoying their confection, but enjoy it they did. It was too bad Baxter wasn't there to see the results of your shared labor. You'd have to at least let him know all the trouble wasn't in vain. While the snacking occurred, you caught sight of Jude in the crowd of guests. He tied a blue bow around his forehead, the feathers hung down and partially covered his eyes. But his bangs were so long, his view was always partly obstructed, so it didn't make that much difference. Miranda's mom, dad, and her two older sisters were going around the room taking pictures and videos. Whenever the cameras ended up pointing in their general direction, Terry and Miranda posed like superstars. Seeing the whole Eckert family enjoy themselves really made the effort worth the while. The cupcakes were finished and crumbs were wiped away, then hand in hand, Terry and Miranda hit the dance floor. Cove's hand, meanwhile, hovered over the platter of cupcakes. He considered taking another, but closed his fingers into a fist. He had resisted the temptation. He jerked his head in the direction of your friends, encouraging you to come with. Cove left the snack table to toe the edge of the lit-up floor. He didn't go an inch past that border. Clapping and calling out to Miranda and Terry was as much partying as he was capable of. You joined in with Miranda and Terry. The two threw their hands in the air when you rushed over. Miranda screeched and Terry chanted your name when you moved with the music. More and more guests crowded onto the bright lights at the center like moths to a flame. Terry wiped and twirled her boa, and Miranda's sunglasses kept almost flying off her face with the quick-footed move she was pulling. After a couple songs, Terry dragged Miranda to the front so she could sit in the throne you'd prepared for her. Time for a cheer. Being at the center of attention normally embarrassed Randy, but today she could ignore those inclinations. Wait there, Randy. Cove, help me get the drinks around. She searched for you over the sea of people and winked when your eyes met. You've got to make up for not helping at all yesterday. Fine. They got to it, pouring and then passing drinks around the room. Cove offered one from the first batch to you. A grim-faced lady saw what was going on and silently helped give out the glasses of fake champagne. She knew the drill without being told. Thanks to the efforts of the three, most people had a cup ready to go. At the front stage, Terry passed the guest of honor a glass too. It was time. To the birthday girl. Happy birthday, Miranda. Dozens of sparkling drinks glimmered under the shining lights as they were raised in a toast. People drinking clinked glasses with whoever they were rubbing elbows with. You chugged the entire glass. Tipping the stem of the cup to the ceiling, you downed the fake champagne. A rush of bubbles scratched your throat, but you didn't stop. You liked to party hard, and Cove could not judge, considering how he inhaled a cupcake only 10 minutes ago. With a half-full plastic champagne glass, Miranda leapt from her seat off the stage and landed in the crowd on the dance floor. That got a second round of cheering. Terry followed right after, and the celebrating resumed in full force. You were part of the crowd jumping to the beat. Cove didn't quite dance himself, but he did bop his head to the music and tap a foot. Like with everything, you relished the moment in your own ways. That afternoon was the party to end all parties, for better or worse. The music inside her flowed without stopping until, Yo, Randy. Miranda's big brother slipped through the few cracks in the wall of dancers until he reached the heart of the floor. Food's here, it's cake time. Yay. Miranda gave a final gleeful twirl on her tiptoes. The birthday sash fluttered. Terry waved Cove over.
Oh, yeah.
Let's eat. The gang reunited back at the refreshment tables. In there, along with Miranda's parents, setting out the sandwich platters for lunch was another figure. A distinctly monochrome figure. Baxter! He acted entirely at ease behind the table, busy doing a final check over a chocolate fountain. It was flipped on and slowly liquefied chocolate began to trickle out. Baxter did it. Is that Baxter? Miranda peered closer. She'd come face to face with an unexpected acquaintance in a gathering of the people she knew best. Yep, he was here before too. Oh, why is he setting up a chocolate fountain for my birthday party? Terry's hands went to her hips, and she came out with the whole story. Beatman was a crucial member of the secret party planning group who made this whole thing happen. What, really? Miranda looked back and forth between Baxter and Terry at a loss. Baxter is nice, and I think he can't stand to see an event fail spectacularly or something, but for whatever reason, he wanted to help out. He took us to the store to get the supplies, make cupcakes, put up decorations, and did just about everything for that chocolate fountain. It almost had to be nixed like 3 times. Baxter kept his professionally polite demeanor the entire conversation, despite the fact that he had to have heard what they were talking about. Feigning innocence, he came around to the other side of the table to properly greet the guest of honor. Hello, happy birthday. Thank you. She barely knew what to say after finding out exactly how much he contributed, but her gaze dropped and she tugged at the sash self-consciously. A minute before, she was the life of the party, embracing the cheesy glitz with gusto, but in front of him, she felt childish. It was everything he expected and wanted to avoid coming to pass. But you met him before, so why are you acting like this? Baxter gave a considerate smile. You should be able to manage the fountain now that it's running. I hope the rest of the party will be a lovely time. You're leaving already? Her question was barely a peep. She had to muster all her confidence to say that much. Yes, my job is done. I was only here for that. You forced yourself to keep an even face in front of Randy. You knew it was coming, but you still didn't like it. But, well... She released her hold on the accessory and looked into Baxter's face directly. It was really thoughtful of you to do all this. You should stay and enjoy the party too. You knew she'd feel that way. Randy would never want to take anyone for granted. You are a gracious toast. His words held sincere appreciation at the welcome extended, enough to get your hopes up. But I can't do that, of course. The rejection was equally amiable. That didn't make it less disappointing. You don't owe me anything. Certainly not a place among your real friends at your birthday party. There's no reason to feel guilty. Now, if you'll excuse me, take care. No! With a kindly wave that left no room for further arguments, Baxter beezed past your group. Excuse me! That was it. He was gone. Terry's shoulders hung low. She'd been able to have fun with Randy, when Randy arrived, but the fresh reminder of what had happened made all the regrets resurface. Cove could only silently rub the scar on his left arm, and worst of all, Randy's cheer hadn't returned after Baxter's vanishing act was completed. He had earnestly wished for her to be happy, but it was understandably hard to get into the celebratory spirit after that kind of revelation. It shouldn't have to end like that. It didn't have to end like that. You wouldn't let it end like that. If Baxter wasn't going to be at Miranda's birthday, then there had to be something else he could be a part of. You mentally grappled with the problem and cast your eyes about, trying to grasp any hint of an idea. Then something Terry had said earlier came back to you. Terry. All the others glanced your way. It was the first crack in the awkward silence, and that was enough for Cove and Miranda to also take an interest. Yeah? Could you do me a favor? Are you kidding? I owe my life for making sure there wasn't a disaster. I'll help you out with whatever you want. I hope too, if there's something I can do. Thanks. Miranda's birthday will be going for just a couple more hours. It'll be done way before the place closes, and Terry said we've got the room for the entire day. So tonight, after all the other guests are gone, let's use this venue for an after party. No, a totally different party. Another party? He tilted his head incredulously. Yeah, another party. Not a birthday. It could be our very own. Sorry. It can be just our group. Me, Randy, Terry, Cove, and Baxter. We could try to set aside some of the food and drinks for later, clean up the mess when everyone has left, and we'll have slow music at this event. You know how much he wanted to dance, and I'd do that with him. You were a great dancer after all. Yeah. The first to affirm the idea was the one originally most trepidatious about Baxter being here, but she answered with confidence. I'll be a member of the secret planning party committee for the surprise. If he can do it for me, I can do it for him, and maybe Terry was right. We could all use more friends. Cove did not look convinced of all that, though couldn't disagree with the main suggestion. Okay. A wide grin pulled at Terry's face, seeing this new plan forming. We should catch him before he's gone. He might not get the message if he escapes now. Good idea, thanks everyone. You rushed through the guests, coming in on all sides, clamoring for their lunch. But bursting out of the party room was like waking from a dream. The pink extravaganza was replaced by a plain white hallway, and the only sounds were your own footsteps echoing off the linoleum floors. You had been able to forget the normal war for a while, but had been there the entire time, going on as usual on the other side of the door, but Baxter wasn't there. You kept going through the lobby into the parking lot. His hair might have fit in with a black tarmac and white painted lines, but the camouflage couldn't fool you. He was at the end of the road, moments away from getting into his car. Baxter. He turned around at the sound of your voice. Pushing yourself further, you shot down the wide open space. Brittany, then something happened. Wait, please tell me this is not the chocolate fountain again. Your gait had slowed immensely in the final feet, and you came to a stumbling stop in front of Baxter. He waited patiently for an answer. Nothing is wrong. Well, that's a relief. You could have fooled me, however. You should be running out of the building if there are no issues. Go enjoy the damn fountain. Baxter's grin was teasing, harmless, though you did miss the lure of genuine frustration at the stupid machine after all that trouble it had caused. He smoothed his face and shirt out in fluid motions. I'll be fine. Perhaps I'll take a nap, I'm going back. I just have to ask you something first. I see. I'm all ears. Okay, so I know you already done a lot for this party and us, but if you're not too exhausted, could you come here again tonight around 7 p.m.? Baxter's almost unshakable smile was lost to suspicious. Not good. This was a surprise you were planning. You threw out the first cover that popped into your head before he could speak the obvious question on the tip of his tongue. The thing is, I don't want to ride home with Terry. Oh, it worked? His expression softened. It worked. Baxter was convinced he needed him. All doubts were settled. Certainly, Brittany. I'll be here at 7 on the dot. You gave him a quick kiss. Your lips brushed against his face in a tiny peck. It was only for a second, but his warmth lingered even after, and so did the sparkle in his dark eyes. Thanks. I'll see you soon. Yes, you will. Oh, wait. I want to see the other options. Like, it's important. I can't tell you why I'm sorry. It worked? Okay, wait. I just don't know what I'd do with you. Okay. Yeah. Alright.
Certainly.
Yeah, skip through all this. Alright. Baxter parted from you yet again, but as you saw him off, you felt good about it. This time, him leaving didn't mean he was simply gone. It meant you'd have time to prepare for his return. You found your way to the party room just in time to sing Happy Birthday. Sliding alongside the rest of the group, you acted as if you never left. Cove chuckled and quietly welcomed you back. Terry's confetti cake was placed in front of Randy at the head of the table. The 19th candle you picked up from the store yesterday was lit by her dad. When she blew it out, the room filled with cheers. Her friends and family ate sandwiches, salad, and cake. The chocolate fountain was a huge hit too, thank goodness. Miranda, Terry, Cove, and yourself each squirreled away a plate of extra desserts and snacks for the secret party. Soon, guests got a second wind and more dancing commenced. And this time, even Cove stepped onto the lit up floor. Every single one of you could enjoy yourself to the fullest now, and you did for the final couple hours of the party. When they got closer to dinner time, guests began to trickle out little by little. Many of them came to hug Miranda and wish her the best once more. That was how Miranda's 19th birthday concluded and how the preparation for the summer soiree began. You informed the team on when Baxter would be arriving and how they couldn't dally. The 4 of you plus Miranda's parents and siblings cleaned up trash and took down the decorations that indicated a birthday was going on. One of the tables in the sound system was left in place for the summer soiree. You also recovered the white boa from under the table where Terry hid it earlier. It was still in pristine condition, perfect. At 6:50, Miranda kindly used the last of her birthday power, or girl power, to ask her family to get out of here so her friends could have their own party. The Edgar clan accepted being kicked to the curb and graciously made themselves scarce. Jude held up a peace sign as he shut the door behind himself, and the rest of the folks taking their leave. At 6:55, you double-checked the dance floor for any debris. It was spotless. At 6:58, you wandered about the room, trying to pick out the best place to stand and wait. Terry teasingly wondered aloud if that's what she looked like before Randy arrived. It was. At exactly 7, the door cracked open. Excuse me, may I come in? Unsure of what he was walking into, Baxter paused at the precipice. Yeah, we've been waiting. That was all the encouragement needed. Baxter came into the party room. He smiled graciously at the cluster of people silently standing ahead of him. Cove leaned over stiffly like a balloon slowly deflating. He whispered awkwardly into her ear.
Oh.
What are we supposed to say now? Are we shouting surprise for this? Surprise! 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 Yeah, surprise! The unexpected, not to mention delayed exclamation his entrance gave Baxter a start. How good of you to come, Baxter. With the way Terry rubbed her hands together and the vague sense of satisfaction in her tone, she was giving the impression he'd fallen into a nefarious trap. Now all the guests have finally arrived and we can begin. What do you mean? I should think the guests had left by this point. Baxter had a generously low level of confusion at the strangeness, merely raising his brow rather than making a hasty retreat. Even the Baxter would probably be the last person you knew who'd be scared off by villainous shenanigans. You decided to avoid any potential misunderstandings. We've been waiting to start the summer soiree. Summer soiree, you say? You've got it. This event is Miranda's birthday no more. She dramatically crossed her arm over the other and flung them outwards as if swearing off the entire concept of a birthday. Terry had to rent this room for the entire day, even though we only needed it until the middle of the afternoon. So we decided to use the last few hours we had here to have another party, one that's for the group of us, so you're invited. You parted from the bunch to position yourself right in front of the stunned Baxter. He didn't flinch as he draped the white feather boa over his shoulders. Baxter's mouth opened wordlessly as he stared directly at your face. He tentatively lifted up a hand, brushing his fingers against the feathers surrounding him. He had to check that it was truly there. Then, with eyes still wide, a delighted grin grew across Baxter's face. I must admit, I didn't suspect it at all. I never should have doubted your abilities to throw a surprise party. Terry, Randy, and Cove crowded around the two of you to reform the group with the newest member. Didn't I tell you the best way to have something to be real surprise is if you do it all at the last second, so no one has even a chance to put it together? Yes, you did. I suppose there are some advantages to the strategy after all. And so the summer soiree commenced. You hung around the almost barren snack table. It was the only piece of furniture left behind from Randy's birthday. There weren't even chairs, mostly. Miranda had joked that Baxter could take the throne now if he wanted to. That part came with the room. He courteously declined. Dinner was simple, more sandwiches and salad. It was also mostly quiet meal, but that's exactly what was needed. At 7 a.m. that morning, you'd left to prepare for Miranda's birthday. 12 hours later, you were still there. Lazily enjoying one another's company after an extremely long day couldn't be overappreciated. Cove wiped crumbs from his mouth after he was done eating and addressed Baxter without being spoken to first for a change. There's dessert for you too, a slice of the cake and one of the cupcakes. Thank you. I'd like to try the cake that Terry made, but I've had quite enough of the cupcakes. Fair enough, he was well acquainted with the confections, even if he'd never taken a single bite. Then can I have it?
Absolutely.
Please do. Don't forget the chocolate fountain. Terry jumped in with another sampling suggestion. That contraption was Baxter's second, arguably more formidable enemy of the event. It's still going strong, you've got to try it. However, he chuckled. Alright, if you insist. Oh, that looks good! For all the trouble it caused, the fountain had indeed kept flowing even as the night went on and dozens of treats passed through it. That was the only part of the equation that was in good shape, however. The platter of goodies along it had become a plate of baddies. What remained was some snapped pretzel fractions, scrapes of fruit, and mostly the full-size granola bars. Cookies and marshmallows had to be the shock of no one had been more popular choices. Those were long gone before the first party had even been finished. Not once a complaint, Baxter plucked up a granola bar and slipped one egg into the rippling sheet of liquid chocolate that he'd melted himself. Cove, meanwhile, wasn't going to settle for that, despite being the one who brought them. He tore off a piece of his second cupcake of the night and stuck it into the fountain. His fingers got coated as well. Baxter languidly watched Cove make a careless mess. You know, the food that crumbling will get into the chocolate in. Never mind. Smirking, Baxter removed his bar from the fountain and flipped around. He leaned his backside against the edge of the table. What does it matter if the chocolate clumps? I wouldn't care if the fountain broke at this point. The point was punctuated with a satisfied bite into the chocolate-covered granola bar. It's good. No matter how definitely he made the statement, it was hard to tell if he was being serious or not. Simply watching the two of them was enough fun for you. When the slim pickings became non-existent pickings, even the most daring among you had to call it quits on the fountain. Terry used the final chance to fulfill her most base urge, sticking her tongue directly into the stream of chocolate. Miranda giggled and squirmed at how wrong it was. Terry gave a thumbs up. Putting your body parts into that contraption was recommended, apparently. Alright. Terry cleaned herself up before making a new announcement. This isn't a birthday celebration, so you know what that means? It's not weird to have slow dancing as our main event.
Huh?
Pardon me, dancing? This party of 5 is going to have slow dancing? Baxter questioned what he was hearing, not in a fun, this is too good to be true way, but in the tone that was almost accusatory, like you've gotten him in a trap after all. I'm beginning to get the impression that this improv event is less for the entire group and more for me specifically. Once again, the group became divided between the 4 of you together and the one outsider, and as always, it was self-imposed. Baxter's arms folded as his gaze wandered over each of the faces around him. He was searching for a reason. You wanted to know Baxter's motivation for his own behavior. Well, yeah, it mostly is. That was the plan. But why? You didn't have to. He insisted immediately, defensively. The chilly reception didn't hamper Terry whatsoever. Perhaps she took him for being shy in the spotlight. She wandered away and hit the music, setting it to a lovely tone with a gentle pace, and thus a nice enough song could smooth out any of the bumps. Baxter remained defiant, waiting motionlessly for a response to what he said. He couldn't and wouldn't accept the situation. Under that kind of pressure, Miranda glanced at the floor, and Cove sheepishly turned from Baxter to look at you for guidance. I see. Yeah, you caught me. That was enough of a hint for all to be clear. You were the planner for this party, of course. You were the planner for this party. Of course, it's how it happened was what you read in his expression. Baxter no longer traded stares among the crowd. He didn't see anyone else in the room except for you. You left me no choice. He took in a breath through his nose and curled his ring fingers into a fist. Ooh, wait. I couldn't just leave you out. No, wait. You met his gaze silently. Okay, well, whatever. You'd have to take the initiative this time. For the second time that night, you approached Baxter, then you offered him your hand. Want to dance? A crease in his brows cracked. Baxter's hardened expression. It was frustrating and wonderful to him for reasons that remain unclear. Delicately and still without another word, he accepted. For the moment, Baxter could let go of his concerns by holding on to you. Hand in hand, you walked into the center of the lit-up floor. The room was so quiet you could make out bits of the conversation the others were having. Terry offered to dance with either Randy or Cove. Both of them refused with varying degrees of nervousness. Terry could only laugh. She knew it was coming. Out of the normal group, you might have been bold enough to do that with her, but you already had a partner. But that meant you had the whole space to yourselves. Though at first, you could only prompt Baxter into swaying in place. With time and encouragement, the dance moved onward until Baxter swept around the room with you like the pro he was. You floated along with his laps effortlessly. When the song ended, the enchantment both of you were under vanished. Baxter settled himself enough to speak to you. So, he murmured pleasantries a hair's breadth away from your face. Was the birthday party a success? Everyone had a great time, especially Miranda. Baxter's lips quirked. It must have been a relief to know for certain that nothing fell apart once he'd made his retreat. Thank you for everything. My pleasure. Then a playful lit rang in his tone. Oh, and before I get to mention it, I am thrilled to attend another summer story with you. Me too. He closed his eyes and placed one foot back, only for a second. He thought better of that and brought it back in line with his other leg. I'm not lying when I say this is one of the grandest occasions I've attended. Confessed by a man wearing a $2 feather boa and standing in the final remnants of a birthday party thrown together in 2 days. That scene had to be a far cry from the formal events you were certain he had attended throughout his life before coming to Sunset Bird. Yet you didn't doubt the earnestness of his words for a second. I apologize if I did not give that impression initially. I hate to be bothered, and you went to so much trouble. You'd nearly forgotten you hadn't let go of each other after the dance, until Baxter's grip on your hand tightened. It doesn't matter now. The effort is sincerely appreciated. In a way, Terry had been right. Even Baxter Ward could be bashful in certain regards. That was okay. You were just glad he enjoyed himself in the end. Aww! Kissed him. You were sleepy and relieved and could finally just be happy with your charming suitor. He accepted the affection readily this time, pressing into you sweetly. Thank you for inviting me to your party, Brittany. Oh, oh my god. No! No! Oh my god, what did I do? Okay. Wait, I need a screenshot. Okay. His eyes were still dancing even if he had stopped, and his words carried the weight of finality with them. There was a joy he found in the fleetingness of it all. Just like this might be your last big party with Terry, Miranda, and Cove, it could very well be the first and final time for Baxter too. He had accepted that as a certainty. Baxter was always so ready to leave with parties in the town on the whole. He treated everything that came his way as temporary, to merely be embraced while he could, and then to freely release. Even though you knew that, even if he'd never done anything differently, you hoped he would keep having a reason to return as long as you reached out to him. And that is the end of the moment, everyone. Oh my god. Wow. Cute. Okay. That is where we're gonna end today's episode, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Next episode, we might do, I don't know, maybe mountain or drinks. It could be either one. I'm not sure. But yeah, everyone, that is all for today's episode. If you guys enjoyed it. But last, you're a Gemini. Thank you for watching. A wonderful day, everyone. Bye.